What is up, hybrid beasts? Bob here with the Hybrid Beast program. I'm getting a little bit settled in Mexico, so I thought I'd invite you over for a quick cup of coffee and some gear talk, okay? Now, in all honesty, you guys know I don't do like massive PED levels of steroids, but I am very open about my testosterone replacement, and it's obviously the sort of thing that you think about when you move to another country. You know, like, what am I going to do about my prescription medication? Okay. Also, I have like a family heritage of having high blood pressure. Okay. Everyone in my family wears glasses. Everyone in my family has high blood pressure. Okay. So I actually started recently taking medicine for my blood pressure, which was also prescription, obviously. Okay. You know, like I said, it's not because I'm on, you know, a gram of Tren a day or something like this. It's legitimately, you know, like I said, my mother is in her 70s now. I mean, I think she was in her early 30s, if not her late 20s, when she jumped on blood pressure medicine. I waited until like 47, 48 when I needed it. I actually might talk about that in another video. But so basically I need prescription blood pressure medicine and I need testosterone, okay? My girl actually came over to Mexico before I did, okay? So one of the things I asked was like, check it out, like see what we can do about, you know, getting my prescriptions. Because what she does is she actually, you know, like she lived in Panama for about a year, okay? And what she would do is every 3 months she would come home to visit, but she'd also come home to see her doctor, get her medicine, like her prescriptions refilled, and she'd just bring her prescriptions with her, okay? Whereas with me, I don't go to like a real doctor, okay? And this is actually gonna be like the first point that I'd like to discuss. Okay, what's it like in the wild, wild west of Mexico, where like in so many countries in the world, you can just buy prescription meds over the counter, okay? Honestly, that's what I did when I was in America. Now, I had a completely legal prescription for my testosterone. I got it from a compounding pharmacy, and I had a completely legal prescription for my blood pressure medicine, okay? But it was all bullshit, okay? Honestly, the place that I went to for my, well, short story, for my blood pressure is basically, I kind of looked around, saw what kind of medicine I'd like, and I just, you know, put it into the Google. I'm like, hey, you know, lisinopril online. And basically there's a company out there that will prescribe you medication. So what I did is I filled out an online formula, like a questionnaire, and it's like, oh, you know, what's this, you know, what's your blood pressure now? And I put in my blood pressure, like, oh, that's not high enough, we can't prescribe you anything. Okay, so it's like 575 trillion over 950,000. Like, yeah, man, okay, great, we'll give you. So basically I got like a legal prescription from a doctor who pencil whipped a prescription, gave it to a pharmacist who pencil script, you know, whatever, like the pharmacist had to like sign for it or whatever, and it got sent to a Publix, which is a grocery store in Florida. So completely legal, but complete bullshit, okay? Like, quite honestly, what's the difference between me filling out an online questionnaire and getting like medicine compared to me just going over to the pharmacy and getting without a prescription, okay? And the same thing with the testosterone, okay? I went ahead and I filled out a questionnaire, and they're like, okay, great, whatever. They sent me the form that I had to print out, bring to Quest, got blood drawn, okay? And like, I legitimately did have low testosterone, okay? Honestly, you know, it was like, the scale was normal is 300 to 1100 nanograms per deciliter. I was like in the 300s. So basically I was as low as you could be without being like in medical need of having testosterone replacement, okay? You know, so like I said, then I saw a doctor, brought a questionnaire to the doctor, they set that up. So basically I did like real bloods. I legitimately did need testosterone. I got on like like a phone conversation. It wasn't a video, it was a phone conversation with a doctor, you know, and they went over the bloods, he went over the situation. But at the end of the day, I think that the place that I went to, basically they just give you CC a test a week, you know, some HCG, see how it goes, okay? like I said, I legitimately needed the testosterone. They didn't just give it to anybody, but it's not like the kind of relationship where my girlfriend has with her doctor, okay? Where she legitimately, like, he's a very well-known longevity doctor, hormone specialist in the Jacksonville, Orange Park area of Florida. Like, everybody there who's on testosterone replacement or hormone replacement, man, woman, or child, knows him. A lot of them go to him. So she goes there, they draw like 1 million, gallons of blood and ask her all kinds of questions and check everything out. So it makes sense for her to go to a doctor and get a prescription. But like, I was doing the same thing. I just went online, how can I, legally get blood pressure meds? How can I legally get, whatever? And like I said, they basically didn't do a whole lot. Over the years that I've been on testosterone replacement, I started when I was 43. Okay, now I'm 48. So it's like, let's say 5 years that I've been on testosterone replacement. I've changed around my protocol a lot, okay? And it had nothing to do with the doctor because, like I said, the doctor basically, they would do bloods every once in a while just to make sure that, you're doing okay. And that was about it. There wasn't like, how can we dial in this tiny little thing to make you feel a tiny little bit better? So what ended up happening is like, I ended up dropping the HCG. I actually got like a little bit of gynecomastia from like HCG. So I just dropped it. I had a problem basically with my estrogen. Like, it was low, so when I started on TRT, it went up and it was nice, but then it went too high. So I had a hard time like lowering my estrogen without totally destroying it. And like I said, I did all this on my own. Okay, I dropped the HCG. I started taking Arimidex. I switched that around. I ended up figuring out that if I injected once a week 200 milligrams, that like every 3 days, taking 1/4 of a milligram of Arimidex would get me my estrogen where I wanted it to be, okay? At one point I was splitting my dose from like, instead of 1 cc, I'd split 1/2 cc twice a week, didn't know what's the difference. Then I went ahead and I tried it every other day, so I took 1/4 every other day, okay, and that really worked well. And I dropped the Arimidex, and I was taking 1/4 every other day, but I was taking DIM and CDG morning and night, okay, which are like natural supplements you can pick up from Amazon, but they tend to like drop your estrogen a little bit. So that's basically what I ended up doing. And I did all of this by myself. Like, I was very proactive, okay? So once again, what the hell is the difference between me going and, oh, I got an official legal, prescription that doesn't really mean anything, and a doctor that really doesn't do a whole lot? What's the difference between that and me just going to the damn pharmacist? And if I did want to do like a massive cycle of something, you could be like 13 years old. If you have access to like a Bitcoin somehow, like a credit card or a bank account, you could get Bitcoin. You could order whatever the hell you want, and it's not coming from a pharmacy, or a compounding pharmacy. So, what's the real point of of having all this runaround with having prescriptions? Okay, so basically, like I said, when I went over, I was coming over to to Mexico, I'm looking into this, like, what are the laws for prescriptions? And basically I found out 3 things. One of them is you could just buy basically anything but hardcore antibiotics and hardcore like narcotic prescription drugs just over the counter. The other thing I heard is that you need a prescription for them. And then the other thing I heard is you need a prescription, but there's usually a doctor next to the pharmacia where you go in there, you give them like $10 US, like, I don't know, that's like what, like 160 pesos right now. You give him like $10 US, and he goes ahead and like, touches your nose and, takes your blood pressure and just gives you a prescription. So I basically came down here, and the other day, I just basically went ahead and I, told the doctor, I was like, hey, the guy in the pharmacy, I said basically like, hey, check it out, man. I need, some lisinopril. Okay, so this is Farmacias del Oro. It's like a pretty big chain, and this is the generic version. Okay, this is like pharmacy grade blood pressure medication. This is 10 mgs, so I take 2 a day instead of taking 120 mg a day. But this is basically just the same thing I was taking. Like I said, this is from a pharmacy, the house generic brand from this pharmacy of lisinopril. But when I was actually taking taking blood pressure medication in America, I was also using a generic. Okay, I was taking a generic version of lisinopril. So it's basically the same thing. Okay, I just walked in there, the guy had it, the guy's like, oh, you know, how many milligrams do you want, whatever, he just gave it to me, okay? And then I went ahead and I grabbed this, which is Bayer Primo Testing, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and get in the differences in testosterone between America and outside of America in a second. But basically what this is it's 250 milligrams per cc as opposed to 200 milligrams per cc, which is what you usually get in America, okay? But this is interesting though, because like I said, this is legitimate Bayer, okay? The brand Bayer, most Americans will call it, Bayer test enanthate, okay? Like I said, it's when I was in America, I was actually using generic testosterone. I never used like Watson or, you know, or Bayer or anything like that. I was getting it prescribed from an online, you know, an online clinic, and they were using, I think it's called the APS pharmacy. It's a pretty well-known compounding pharmacy in Florida, and they would just UPS it to me. So this is actually the first time I'm going to use real from a pharmaceutical company testosterone. Like I said, because before I was using it from a compounding pharmacy. Even my girlfriend, her doctor, right next door to his place, there was like a compounding pharmacy. So he would prescribe you testosterone, and then you go next door and get testosterone from the compounding pharmacy. So that wasn't even brand name. So this is the first time when I'm in Mexico, I'm getting a brand name. It was interesting, like I said, a couple of things. So I was taking a quarter of a cc every other day. So a quarter of a cc at 200 mgs per cc is 50 mgs. Every other day averages out to 3.5 doses a week. So 50 times 3.5, I actually lowered my dosage from 200 down to 175, okay? But this is 250 milligrams per cc. But once again, I'm not an idiot. I don't need a doctor to tell me what the hell to do. If this is 250 and I was taking, you know, 50 mgs every other day at 200, well, instead of taking a quarter of 200 mgs per ml, I'll just take 0.2 instead of 0.25 cc's, like a fifth. And that's also the same thing. So I shoot a little bit less oil into my deltoid, get a little bit less, you know, of a deposit there over time. And it's still 50 mgs every other day, 175 a week. So, you know, whatever. The price was expensive, okay? It actually was expensive. I think I paid $18 US for this, okay? So $18 US, if you go ahead and you multiply that by 10 cc's, which in America you should get like a 10 cc vial, that would be $180 US for a 10 cc vial. It's not cheap, okay? But like I said, this is from the company Bayer, okay? So this is, like I said, legitimate, proper pharmacy grade. Like I said, whatever. Still a little bit cheaper than what I was paying for the clinic, because they obviously, you know, they got it from a compounding pharmacy, which is another company. They also needed to make their money, so I was paying more than, I was paying a lot of money a month, okay, a couple $100s a month for the, for, like I said, for my 1 cc a week. Okay, so I'm actually, you know, kind of happy with this. Another thing that's interesting is it comes, this is just 1 cc. Like I said, it's not in a vial with 10 cc's, it's just one. So this makes it kind of interesting, because what I do is I use insulin syringes, like with tiny little needles on them. Okay, and there are 2 ways to do this. One way is obviously to just kind of tip this and kind of like, you know, draw it out, and it kind of comes out slowly because it's a thick oil. So what a lot of people, you know, do, and what I ended up having to do, is like called backloading, okay, where you take the plunger out of the syringe, and then you, so I take like, let's say like a 3 cc syringe or a 1 cc syringe or whatever, you know, 3 cc's. You know, I go ahead and you just draw all of this out into the big syringe, pull the plunger out of the insulin syringe, and then you just inject from the big syringe whatever amount you want. Okay, then you put the plunger back in, you have to tip it up so that the bubbles out, whatever. But the point is, that's actually something I've always hated doing, okay? Because honestly, like the one guy I've really known, like a good friend who was on steroids, since then, you know guys that probably are on steroids or whatever, but like this is the first guy who was like a friend of mine. I knew when we first started getting into steroids. We used to train together, we used to eat together, he was like my training partner. And he did, DECA only cycles back in Germany in probably the early 2000s. Didn't really know what he was doing. Went to a pharmacy, got ampules of DECA, and I remember one time he's telling me basically what happened is he bought the DECA, and the guy at the pharmacy sold him insulin syringes instead of like real syringes, like 1 inch, 1 to 3 cc syringes. So what ended up happening is he's like, they fucked me. They gave me the insulin syringes. He's like, so I'm like, so what did you do? He's like, well, I basically just popped the top on the ampule and I pulled the plunger out and I poured it in. And he's like, well, apparently at some point during that there was some kind of like contamination, because he basically jabbed himself in the ass with this syringe and he got like an abscess. And then instead of asking somebody what to do, he basically tried to lance it himself, which obviously made it worse. And then he ended up having to go into like the middle of nowhere. He was actually at a training. He was in the Army still. He like drove into the middle of nowhere when he was out somewhere for some training, like in a classroom training, not in the field. And like, he got like a prescription for, I don't know, Keflex or something from some doctor in Germany, privately paid it with cash. But like I said, so I've never really been a big fan of backloading syringes. Honestly, what I think he did is he probably pulled the plunger out and like threw it on the floor, whatever, put it on the table or something like this. What you have to do is you have to pull the plunger out, like hold it in your teeth or something, so like nothing touches the actual plunger, and then put it back in. So you gotta be careful, but like, yeah, I don't really like this. That's the one thing I do. I really miss having a 10 cc vial where I could just pull out, and it takes a while to draw out of a 10 cc vial with an insulin syringe, but like I said, it works, it's fine. So anyway, so let's go ahead and let's just talk real quick about the types of testosterone that they have. Okay, in America, you're probably going to be prescribed Testosterone, okay? And it's basically like a, medium estered kind of testosterone, okay? The ester is like a time release, okay? Like, when you have like, a medicine or something like that that's like fast acting, and you have one that's like time released, okay, where you slowly dissolves over time. That's basically the same thing. There is such a thing as pure testosterone. Guys will actually use it as like a pre-workout. I think it's actually suspended, instead of oil, it's actually in water, okay? And they'll just like jab themselves pre-workout with it, and they'll, boom, their testosterone goes up like 1,000,000 points right pre-workout. And then of course, within a couple hours, it's gone, because it's just pure testosterone with no time delay. Guys who use it as pre-workout. They talk about guys using it for doping. Like, they could go ahead and they could just jab themselves with that, and they'll get like the effects of the testosterone, but it's also out of their system quickly. I'm not a drug expert or a doping expert, but like I said, that's what I hear. And then, like I said, everybody else really uses some kind of an ester. So in America, you use cypionate, which, write down somewhere. Yeah, it's like cypionate is like an 8-day half-life, okay? Which means half of it's gone within 8 days, okay? And it's usually about 5 half-lives for you to have like a stable level of hormone in your body. So 5 times 8 days is 45 days. So it's like a month and a half before you have like a stable amount of cypionate in your body, okay? You always get guys like, well, how long does it take for my testosterone replacement to kick in? If you're using cypionate, it's about a month and a half. Like 6 weeks, you should be, that's at the steady level. That's as much testosterone as you're gonna have in your body, unless you change the dose, okay? So they don't have cypionate in other countries, okay? What they have that I was able to find, just looking online in Mexico, is they've got Testosterone, okay, which is a mix of 4 different types of esters. You've got propionate, which is really quick, Testosterone, which is like really long ester, and you got 2 in between. The idea with that was really that like you could go ahead and poke yourself for replacement, and like some will hit real quick, and then some will hit a little bit later, and then some will take a really long time. So if you shoot like once a month or whatever, or once every 6 weeks or some crazy stuff like that, Like basically you'll get like a level amount. But the fact of the matter is everybody that I know that's on testosterone replacement, and me personally, like my experience has been, you want to have a level amount of testosterone in your body. So you want to inject a lot. You know, I injected once a week, I injected twice a week, didn't notice a difference, but now doing a little bit every other day, I'm like just really happy, okay? So what I want is I want just like 1 ester of testosterone, so it's just normal, okay? Because that's the easiest way to really control like your levels. You know, you don't have like spikes where you have like shoot testosterone every 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever. You have like too much testosterone, then too little testosterone, then too much testosterone, too little testosterone. I rather have, you know, like I said, my cypionate. I would rather have my cypionate where I basically go every other day. So it's like, let's say there's a line where you want your testosterone levels to be. It goes just a little bit above and then a little bit below and a little bit above and a little bit below and a little bit above. So it basically stays stable, as opposed to like when I was shooting once a week where it's like way too much, way too little, way too much, way too little. It's basically just like a wavy line that's almost perfectly flat, okay? So like I said, Testosterone I'm not interested in. Then they have something in Mexico called Testosterone. I think it's only Mexico that has it, and it's a legitimate pharmaceutical grade testosterone. What it is it's 200 milligrams of testosterone N-enthate and 50 milligrams of testopropionate, which is a fast ester, okay? So it's basically like Testosterone almost. You know, Testosterone has, I think, 30 mgs of testopropionate and from 250 mgs, and the Testoprim is basically 50 mgs of testopropionate per 250 mgs. So I'm obviously not interested in that either, but there is Bayer Primotestin, which is 250 mgs of test N-enthate, okay? So it's Testcypionate has an 8-day half-life, N-enthate has a 7 to 9-day half-life. Honestly, I don't know if the Europeans or if the Americans came up with theirs first, but I think what I've heard before is the idea is somebody created one or the other, and then just to make it a little bit different, they basically changed it a tiny bit. So like cypionate now became N-enthate, or N-enthate became cypionate. They're basically the same thing. It's, you know, basically about a week-ish half-life, which means, you know, here, for instance, test cypionate, like, you know, 8 days, let's say 9 days, test N-enthate, 9 days, okay? So if it has a 9-day half-life, 5 half-lives means 45 days, you know, like I said, 6 weeks, and then you've got, you know, the levels in your body are stable. Okay, so that's basically what I went with, is Bayer Primotestin, and that's the reason why, is because, like I said, I just inject every other day anyway. Honestly, you know, if I could find like legitimate pharmacy grade testopropionate, and not like this, you know, Testoprim, but like legitimate pure testosterone propionate, I would probably use that, okay? Because I inject every other day anyway, you know, and as a matter of fact, you know, I might even inject a little bit less every single day. You know, I have no problem, because it's like a tiny little hair-like needle that you don't even feel coming in, and it's such a small amount of oil going in. Like, the more often you inject, the less you inject every time. So it's quick, it's fast, it's painless, and I would have no problem shooting every day. And like I said, it's quick acting, but it'd be like in and out and in and out and in and out and in and out, and that would probably be the most stable. So if I ever find testopropionate, that's what I'm gonna do. But like I said, that's basically where I'm at so far. Like I said, it's like I'm not gonna go out on a rail on a limb here and say that I'm a libertarian, because God knows, maybe they, like, I don't know, you know, I don't know what their politics are. You know, I mean, maybe they, like, you know, pretend that the world's flat, or that the fucking, you know, apocalypse didn't exist or something. But the bottom line is, like, I'm not gonna go out on a limb and say I'm a libertarian, but I like the concept of, like, just do what you want to do, you know. Like I said, I mean, I remember, honestly, like, when I was a kid, you know, I was looking at like a gallery magazine. It's like a dirty magazine when I was a kid. And you know, there's apparently at one issue they had something that was kind of like a heroin junkie, or like a, you know, drug addict, you know, themed shoot. And this one guy wrote in, he's like, bro, that's kind of fucked up. He's like, you know, he was doing drugs, and you know, he bought some street drugs, and he ended up snorting like fucking liquid Drano, or sorry, powdered like Drano or whatever, mixed with something else, and it totally fucked him up, sent him to the hospital. Obviously, it was a warning sign that maybe he should, clean his shit out. And he says he hasn't used drugs since then, but no joke about drugs. But like, honestly, the same thing can be said about testosterone. Like I said, I mean, I got a prescription for testosterone, and like, I did legitimately have to give it blood work and whatever, but they basically pencil whipped everything, and I did all the adjustments myself. I'm not an idiot. I can read my own blood work. I could do everything myself. So like, why is it that I have to pretend I'm getting like this fake blood pressure medicine, fake blood pressure medicine prescription, or this fake testosterone prescription from a real doctor, when at the end of the day, I'm basically doing the same thing now that I was doing then. My girlfriend's already been to a skin doctor here. We've already brought our kitty cats to the vet, brought our new doggy dog to the vet. So like, it's really cheap here to get, healthcare. So I could like run off and get any kind of blood work I want for real cheap, read it myself, because once again, I'm not a moron. I could just adjust anything that I have to adjust. And the same thing, like I said, with, imaging. I found a place walking to the gym today that offers imaging, organ imaging, for like really cheap. It's a good place. It's just, we're in Mexico, it's cheap. So like I said, at the end of the day, there's no reason. It's not like you're gonna keep somebody from getting prescription medicine by requiring the prescription, number one. And number two, at the same time, it's like, if you couldn't get a prescription in America, you couldn't pencil whip it, there's like illegal generics coming in, everything from Viagra to Cialis to fucking Trenbolone to whatever. You can get it anytime you want in America. But by not regulating it, like, I know that I'm gonna take this Prima test and I'm gonna be okay. Whereas if you like shoot up like, some kind of a steroid that you bought, from a guy who made it, or you ordered it from fucking, whatever, if you inject some of that, I mean, it might not be clean. You might inject yourself with like a fucking, something that causes like a major infection. I know there's a guy, a bodybuilder from Thailand. He was like in Colombia, living in Colombia, and he bought some shit and he injected it, and it literally ate his leg. Like, they had to have several operations on the muscle in his quad to remove the infection from where he injected. So like, fuck that shit, Like I said, basically, it's like, I think that if you want something, you're gonna get it anyway. Speaking of Viagra, like, there are places where you basically go online, hey, do you have a problem with your prostate? Do you fucking have a problem with blood pressure? What's your blood pressure? What's your whatever? And then you just, boom, you immediately get a completely legal prescription for pharmacy grade generic Viagra or Cialis or whatever in America, just by going online and making up a bunch of bullshit when they ask you questions on a form. So like I said, like, what's the difference between, having to get a fake prescription in America for Viagra, buying illegal fucking Viagra from an unknown source, or just walking into a fucking, pharmacy and being like, bro, I want some Viagra. So, all right, cool, boom. So like I said, I really enjoy the looseness, of the, pharmacy system around here. I think it's a pretty cool thing. So, yeah, like I said, if I get blood work done or whatever, I'll go ahead and I'll certainly blog about that, let you guys know what's going on with that, because that's going to be pretty cool. Like I said, get some blood work, see how much that costs, see how quickly and easily it goes. But, I know in America, for instance, you can't even get an AIDS test. Like, you want to see, like, hey, let me just check to see if I've done something I haven't, shouldn't have done. You cannot go in Florida, in New Jersey, you can't go ahead and say, like, I want an AIDS test. You have to go to a doctor, and the doctor has to say, okay, he has to order your AIDS test. Like, why can't you, what the fuck is wrong with this? Why do we have to, like, regulate this, that you can't even get an AIDS test in New Jersey, without a prescription, basically? So like I said, I think it's kind of getting out of hand, but fucking pretty cool here. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Like I said, this isn't a drug channel, but I am open about my use of TRT, and a lot of people are asking me about my experiences because, like I said, you get older, you want to just see why shit's not working the way it used to work. So this is, like I said, what I've got going on. If you have any more questions, ask them down below. I'll go ahead and answer them. And aside from that, ask me any questions you have down below. Hybrid Beast program, my current diet, you know, living down in Mexico, anything that you want me to cover in a video in the future, I'll go ahead and do it. Aside from that, thank you guys for watching. Follow my Instagram at Hybrid Beast Program. Links down in the description. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next video.